with everything that's going on with the election and everything, I thought maybe we would take a bit of a break and talk about something else. And since I've talked about the idea that I want to talk about some business concepts going forward and how business works and how you interact with business eventually down the road, but I want to do it on the basis of poker. That's why we're Liberty Poker Club. And so I want to talk about some base level ideas just to share some entry level concepts. But I don't want to teach you how to play Texas Hold'em. So you will have seen in the title of this video a web address for pokernews.com, and it will direct you specifically to a page where you can read how to play Texas Hold'em, and it'll give you the basic rundown of how Texas Hold'em works. And so I'm going to assume either you know how to play Texas Hold'em or that you've gone over there and figured out the basics of how play happens so that I can interact based upon that. But I'm going to go off of that basic. I'm not going to teach you how a basic hand works. I want to talk about how you do some of the things that it tells you to do in there. So that's where we're going to start. So we've got a basic layout here. What you're looking at here on the table is a four-handed game. So there's four people playing, and we're seeing that this person's the dealer. That's the button that gets talked about, and that's the dealer button. And in a home game, whoever has that very often is the person who deals. That's where the game developed, was in home games, and people deal like that. Though since a whole lot of us watch poker on television or whatever, we choose a dealer and have whoever's the best dealer deal all night anyway. But the basic idea is that person is in the position of the dealer, and so as you will have seen in the instructions, that lays out how it's playing, and that the person to the left of them will be the person who plays first in much of the time. But the other thing you're seeing here is you're seeing a small blind and a big blind, which is also described there, and all that's doing is it's forced these people to already bet. So these people have something in the hand already. This person has the minimum bet in. This person has half the minimum bet in. And so then all the cards have been dealt. So the first person who's going to have to do anything is the person in my position, and that's only because they've already been forced in, and so it's acting like those bets are already in, and it's going to come back around and finish the betting with those people is the normal way. The minimum bet is here, which means that if this person's going to stay in the hand, they have to at least match that, so they've only put in half of what they have to. And it's really just designed to force play, to force people to actually play so that people don't just skip everything waiting for hands. And so the basic layout, again, as you'll have seen, everybody has two cards. The very first thing that's going to happen after everybody gets two cards is you're going to have to decide if you're going to bet or not. And that's where I want to start talking, is I want to talk about some basic concepts of the betting, because it says that you're going to bet, but the instructions don't tell you why you would bet, how you would bet, those sorts of things. And so in this case, we're going to only show my hand. We don't know, because if I'm playing, I don't know what any of these people have. But I want to start talking a little bit about the basic concepts of what do I know, what don't I know, what does everybody know, these sorts of things. So in this case, I don't know how well you're able to see, but I have a jack and a queen, and they're suited. That means they're both of the same suit. In this case, they're spades, and so I have what is referred to as suited connectors. So we know our hand is going to take up 5 cards. So suited connectors means that I have 2 cards of the same suit that are close enough together to be in a run of 5 cards in a row. In this case, they're back-to-back cards, but if I had a jack ace, they're suited connectors as well, because of the fact that they can make a 5-card hand. This is a good starting hand. So that's the first thing we're thinking about, is I got to decide if I'm going to bet. And one of the basics, so I wish should have had it sitting here, but I have several poker books sitting around here, and as I look at them, one of the ones that I really like is by Daniel Negreanu, And Daniel talks about basic strategy is play good cards. And so, especially those of us who don't have tons of money, it's a great strategy to play good cards. What is good cards? Well, things that are in most games counted as 10 or better. So tens, jacks, queens, kings, aces, those are good cards for sure. It gets more complex when you start looking at pairs of cards are good cards. So if you have two eights, those are reasonably good cards. And I want you to begin to see, part of what I want you to see tonight is that the game is far more complex than just knowing something as simple as me saying these two cards are good cards. Because how good of cards they are have already been affected by things that I've told you, possibly without you knowing it. So for instance, there only being 4 people playing changes what good cards are. So when you look, one of the things that it gives you when you look at the how to play website that I gave you, and you can go look at any others. There are also lots of them in video form that will walk you through how it plays. But one of the ones you need to know is you need to know the relative values of hands. Relative values of hands gives you that a 4 of a kind's worth more than a pair. Okay, that's obvious stuff. And as we go through, as we talk about poker going forward, we'll talk about how much better hand is 4 of a kind versus 2 of a kind. What are the odds based upon those things? What's the odds that if I have a pair, it's better than anybody else's cards? Or if I have 4 of a kind, how likely is it that it's better than everybody else's cards? And those things are greatly affected by how many people are sitting here. That if we play at a typical casino type table or a tournament type table, you're likely to start off with 9 players at a table. Occasionally there's more, but if you're playing 9 people at a table, a pair is not nearly as strong as at the opposite end of the spectrum, 2 people playing heads up. A pair is a very strong starting hand. It's an incredibly strong starting hand because the total number of cards in play is very small. Right now, with 4 people here, there are 8 cards in play. So there are 8 cards I'm trying to deal with and figure out how do I beat those 6 cards versus my 2 cards. If there's 9 people playing, there's 18 cards at the start of this. That increases the number of possibilities that are sitting there. And because of that, you're going to find that if you play online, which is something I highly recommend you do, I've told you before, I play on a particular app, but I don't even really care. You play wherever. Online gives you lots of chances to learn to play and to play a bunch of times. And in doing that, what you're going to find is if you play at 9-handed table versus a 6-handed table versus tournaments when you're doing well and you get down to 3 or 4 people, you're going to see that the winning hand strength goes smaller and smaller and smaller. So very often it takes a much stronger hand to win when there's 9 players at the table than there is when there's only 2 players at the table. Again, all of these things are relative because from my experience of watching, if you were looking at a full table of professionals, that doesn't hold up as much as a full table of amateurs. Why? Well, because professionals, this is very much a generalization, but professionals tend to play better hands, which means if you have 9 professionals at the table, when we start seeing the cards that are out here, there are far less players who are seeing that are seeing what we call the flop. So in this initial round of betting, there's going to be far less people decide to stay in the hand the better the players are, because they're going to understand that they're more likely to play good cards. Again, these are generalizations. There are some players out there are some pros out there who will play any 2 cards. They want to see every single flop. They're going to play any 2 cards, and that affects the strategy and so forth. But in generalization, the lower level you play, even when I play online, you're going to find the entry-level tables, the lowest chip value tables. So when they first give you 3,000 chips or whatever, and you go to your first table, you basically assume that nobody there has any clue what they're doing, and every person there is going to play every hand. It's because they just want to be in the hand, so they're going to play everything. When as you move up, you're going to find, in general, even online, even playing pretend chips, you're going to find that people play smarter and smarter poker, which means the number of people in a hand go down. Mind you, at this level, all the people who are laying down their cards aren't affecting that very much. You are still starting against 9 hands. What that means is you still started against those 8 other hands, and just because half of them laid them down, it means the half that are still in are stronger cards than you'd be facing if you were with somebody heads up. Just that's how the odds work. So I've got 2 cards here. I'm pretty happy with them. I'm happy with them because they're connectors, meaning that they're within 5 cards of each other, and they're suited, which is good. And in this case, they're high cards, which means if I pair either one of these cards, that's if I'm going to be heads up against another pair, those are pretty good pairs. So all the way around, these are good cards.